Hello and welcome to the webinar Streamlining Workflows with Process Automation. This is jointly presented by Newgen Software and Deloitte India. Newgen Software is the leading provider of low-code digital automation platform. Newgen is the leading provider of low-code digital automation platform, globally successful financial institutions, insurance, government, and shared services organization rely on Newgen's industry-recognized products and application to manage BPM, ECM, and CCM for connected operations. Deloitte India is a leading provider of audit and assurance consulting, financial advisory, risk advisory, tax, and related services. Deloitte serves 4 out of 5 Fortune Global 500 companies. Today, we have Mr. Pallav Chaturvedi, Director, Deloitte India. He has an extensive experience within the financial domain. He consults and provides insights to organizations on how to set up costing systems, budgeting frameworks, and with help of that, he uses predictive modeling to build data-driven forecasts. Joining him is Mr. S. Sriram, Head Consultant for Newgen's Enterprise SSC and BPO verticals. He has over 20 years of experience in implementing strategic solutions for enterprise content management, business process automation, with expertise across industry verticals like manufacturing, financial services, outsource, and captive operations. I am Ruchika Srivastav, and I shall be your host and coordinator for webinar today. At the end of the presentations, we will have our question and answer session. So I will request all of you to please type your question in the GoToWebinar question window. And I shall take that up towards the end of the session. Now it is over to you, Pallav.
Thanks, Ruchika. Let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, Pallav, it is.
It is. Great. Thanks, Ruchika. Is the entire screen visible, Ruchika? Just checking before I begin.
Yes, the entire screen is visible.
Right. Warm welcome to everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on which part of the globe you're attending this this webinar from. Apart from what Ruchika said, I also consult a lot of companies both in India and outside on their operational processes, typically in the area of finance operations, and which is why I have experience around driving some of the automation agenda for for a lot of finance functions, right? I'll begin with setting some context around where we are in the overall scheme of things, right? We do know about several revolutions that have occurred at an industrial level, right, across the ages. It all started with the whole mechanization of production to drive efficiencies, right? Assembly line came in again, further driving efficiencies and productivity, and bringing in a whole new industrial age, right? In the 50s and 60s, we witnessed the emergence of computers, mainframe systems, internet, which became more prevalent in the 90s, more to say. But yeah, as a technology, I think it had started to come by the late 70s, early 80s. All of these revolutions, to a certain extent, were driving certain efficiencies, certain productivities that were here to stay, right? Companies, people who adopted some of these really flourished, and essentially, one has to adopt and align themselves to the change. But as soon as you, I mean, it all depends, right? I mean, which part of the change are you really, accepting, right? In the evolution or maturity of that change. Today we'll cover a topic which is closer to corporate processes and not to, let's say, the industrial processes. But when we look at corporate processes, there have been certain technologies that have been driving what we call as a fourth industrial revolution. Sometimes in the industrial space we would call it let's say industry 4.0, but there are enough technologies that are applicable to corporate processes that are also part of this fourth industrial revolution, right? BPM systems, for example, have already been a mature technology. They've been around for a good a number of years now, providing an underlying enterprise content management, driving workflow automations to really automate a lot of processes, right? Then came in robotic process automation systems, which mimicked human action, right? Whereby a lot of things which are very transactional in nature were digitized to a certain extent, automated to a certain extent to drive further efficiencies, right? Then we came into a technology which is called cognitive. There have been early stage adoption of a lot of cognitive platforms. Cognitive is more to say we are moving away from mimicking human action to move to mimicking human thought, right? When we talk about human thought, it is a complex area, and there have been a lot of artificial intelligence, machine learning, cognitive automation based platforms that are as of now in various stages of maturity. And these are some of the platforms that are driving further change and further efficiencies and productivity gains for a lot of companies, right? We've seen more capable RPA platforms. RPA technologies themselves have matured quite a bit. And when we talk about some of these, essentially there are platforms which are now, coming to a lot of corporates in an integrated fashion, where you have underlying BPM system, which also offers you integration with RPA platforms, which also is looking to build, integrations with a lot of these cognitive, based automations. As we move forward in this whole evolutionary change, right? We understand that the data is going to be produced I mean, there's going to be a treasure trove of data that enterprises are going to own. Right? And how do we really leverage that data? How do we really have platforms such as machine learning platforms that are leveraging some of this data to drive certain insights, to help with both tactical as well as strategic decision making for enterprises, right? And all of this is something which is not going to be realized in a very, very distant future. This is all something wherein the technologies already exist, and change has already started to take place. There are companies which are early adopters and are already realizing some of these benefits, and some of the other companies which will probably later come onto these platforms to realize the same benefits. With this, to something that probably all of us would have seen happen as leaders in our own companies. But overall, a pandemic which really started at the fag end of 2019, really drove a lot of change last year, and is continuing to drive that change this year in the way work happens across companies, right? In the US, for example, there was a study that was done which said that pre-COVID or pre-pandemic, there were about 15% of the people who used to telecommute to work, which is to say that they used to work, either in a work from home kind of a setup, or they used to work from, away from office, right? During the pandemic, during the age of lockdowns, this number went up, by a large extent. But what people are saying is that on a sustainable basis, people in the US would want to work. I mean, at least 50% of the people would want to continue working on a work from home kind of a model, or a telecommute kind of a model, even post pandemic, right? There are certain drivers which are responsible for the let's say preferences of these people who are looking to work from home. So people feel that working from home really gives them a better work-life balance, a survey really put these numbers into perspective in the US to say that about 60% of the people felt that they could manage their work life in a better way, right? 74% of the people said that even post the pandemic they would want to follow this kind of a work routine, and this is something which they would want to do on a more sustainable basis. In APEC as well, some of these trends are either similar or probably more pronounced. For example, in the APEC region, there was another survey that was done, which again found that people would want to, about 58% of the people, which is a significant majority of the people, which said that they would want to continue with a work from home kind of setup. In India as well, another survey revealed that India is again, probably not too far from some of these numbers. Even it is aligned in a more pronounced way. 88% people felt that they would want to continue with work from home kind of a routine, right? But having said this, as leaders, you would have certainly seen some of the challenges of working from home or working from remote kind of a setup, right? Even though people are saying that they are having productivity gains, when they work in a remote setup where they have more flexibility to work, but as leaders, there's a question that really comes in: is that productivity spread uniformly, right? Because if you work in a remote setup, your supervision is only going to be limited to a certain extent. How do you deal with all the distractions that a home environment typically offers, right? How do you really look at productivity in this new age, right, and where people are looking to do more of remote work? Relationships, right? In an office kind of a setup, there were so many formal, informal conversations that used to happen, that used to drive a lot of relationships, right? How do you drive all of that in a virtual setup? What are going to be the new development or learning needs of people as they learn to operate in a virtual environment? And how do you really go about expediting those skills in people at various levels, right? Innovation, right? It's such a key to creating differentiators in a lot of our businesses. How do we really do innovation? How do we really go about innovation? Where people are not able to have those coffee table conversations, right? How do you really discover let's say new things that people could do, right? And how do people really interact when they work in a remote setup? Now, having said that, COVID also exposed a lot of businesses that had broken processes. People realized that they could not afford to work in the same way that they used to. Business continuity, for example, became an issue for people, for companies, right? In the US alone, because of pandemic, people realized that they could no longer postpone their digital transformation journeys, and about 59% of the programs in the US were expedited or accelerated, right? With this, I'll move to certain trends that we have seen and how these trends can be useful for leaders such as yourselves. As we move to more digitized processes, we also move to a place where we have the employee actions, digitized, and the logs of employee actions created, which is a wealth of information, as far as how people work are concerned, right? The way we use our collaboration tools really give us insights into how individuals or teams are interacting. What is their productivity patterns? What are their interaction patterns? And this information, largely captured at a metadata level, really gives us insights into how that collaboration, which used to happen quite seamlessly in a physical setup, how that can be driven in a virtual setup, right? With the processes becoming digital, companies are supposed to become more agile, and like I said earlier, discover what are the work patterns, and then adjust to those work patterns and to work demands accordingly, right? Once we have all of this data, monitoring this data and getting insights from this data will help us improve certain policies to really drive changes as far as work-life balance is concerned. Once we understand, going digital by itself improves work life, because certain processes that were more manual are going to be done in an automated fashion, giving people more bandwidth to do something more, right? Whether it is to spend time with their family, or whether it is to spend time on an activity which requires more brain power, right, and more judgment, so to say. With digital, what has also happened is companies have discovered that earlier the experience of an employee used to be part digital and part physical, because one was not only interacting with the digital systems, but one was was a part of an active office where that interaction used to happen with people, with the office spaces as well. The employee experience was very different. Now, when people work in a remote setup, the employee experience per se is going to be determined by the digital setup of the company, and hence it is important for people to really understand what employee experiences that they are looking to drive, right? Now, in this entire list of things, what has really changed is the use of office. As Deloitte, we came out with a study wherein we said that in the in setup of the future, perhaps office will likely be retooled to smoothen the virtual interactions and the multi-directional collaboration that will happen with employees who are working in a remote setup. Now, with this, I'll come to some of the things that we've seen happen as part of last year and this year. What we've seen is there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of volatility in terms of how things were happening once the pandemic had really struck. For companies in the FMG space, in the in the space where they had to rely a lot on their supply chains, both their backward supply chains for procurement of goods, as well as their forward supply chains in terms of their distribution chains, there were so many things that could go wrong, right? At a people level, people, certain key people could really fall ill because of the infection, and hence you really need to have a flexible or a fungible team structure. But not only that, there were a lot of policies that were undergoing change from the government, right? Which areas can you really serve? From where can you procure? What all things are allowed in a certain geography or a region? Certainly countries restricted the movement of both people as well as, to a certain extent, the movement of goods as well. In this kind of a setup, how do you really look at your ecosystem in a new way, right? With all these disruptions taking place, working in a non-digitized way certainly is not the most efficient way of working, right? And a lot of companies realize this, and then try to move the interactions that they had, the information that they shared with the ecosystem partners on a digital platform, right? Vendor management, for example, is such an area where a lot of automations have taken place. Going further, when companies started to look at the automation agenda, typically when you look at an automation agenda, there are various ways of going about it. But one of the key ways to really attack the problem is to look at which are the low-hanging possibilities or applications of automation, right? Which are those low complex, low risk processes that are amenable to automation? How can I quickly digitize them so that I can quickly start realizing some of those benefits, right? As I work in the area of finance, I have seen a lot of accounts payable processes undergo automation, and I've seen companies move to a paperless invoicing, where they have more control of how cash is flowing in, and they have more control in terms of uh, uh, you know making things move with very limited human interaction and human control. Going forward, and this is perhaps true for India as well as is true for certain of the APEC geographies. Uh, India is home, for example, to more than 1,500 global in-house centers, which are typically house the back office operations of large MNCs across the globe. A lot of processes that happen within these GICs or global in-house centers are time-sensitive processes, which require you to do that activity in a stipulated time. What we saw that was in these GICs, people were there were multiple systems which people had to deal with. Not only the enterprise technologies such as ERPs, but systems which housed a lot of operational data. What essentially happens is one really goes to various systems, downloads certain reports, uh, does analysis on an Excel file, saves that analysis for somebody else to do in a certain folder, or perhaps uses that data to enter it into a system, and then somebody else probably takes up. Supervision really was quite strong in a physical setup where people were doing all of those activities, and somebody who's a team leader or a supervisor could oversee some of this. Whatever challenges were there could easily be highlighted and addressed. In a remote setup, we saw that people, let's say with a team size of 25, had to make about 100 calls in a day just to have a sense of where the process is stuck, right? What are the challenges on, and even to give a view to their leaders in terms of where a certain process is. And these leaders were both based out of India as well as based out of the home geography of the company. To do this really became so difficult and so unmanageable for a lot of companies that digital agenda really had to be pushed through, so that there was an underlying platform which could interact with all of these systems, give a layer of governance to and have a sense of control to the team lead to be able to understand where a certain issue is and how to address that issue, right? uh, if there are let's say challenges wherein a certain employee has fallen ill because of the infection, how the process can be transferred to somebody else in a seamless manner, where that person has the background in terms of where the activities is done. All of this could be done on a digital platforms, and what we have seen is 90% of the companies, or let's say the GICs that are in India, have already moved to a remote setup and are able to maintain their business continuity because of the acceleration of their digital programs. Now, all of this has been driven and can be driven basis certain technology enablers. Low-code platforms certainly help because the employees in themselves can manage a certain level of variation. Cloud infrastructure is really key, because in uncertain times you don't know what is the level of infrastructure that you need to invest in, and cloud infrastructures give a lot of flexibility with respect to scale as well. So it's a sustainable digital change for a company that is enabling some of this digitization over a low-code platform enabled by a cloud infrastructure, right? So these are some of the things which I thought would be useful to share with the leaders that we have on the call today, and would be happy to answer and address any questions that you might have at the end of the presentation. Ruchika, that's about it from my end, and over to Mr. Sriram. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Pallav. That was quite insightful. Sriram, sir, would you like to take over? So we aren't able to hear you.
Yeah, hope you are able to see my screen.
Yes.
The presentation.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you are able to see my screen and presentation as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I'll switch off my webcam. Very good morning, afternoon to all of you. I thank you all for joining this webinar in spite of your busy schedules. Thanks, Pallav, for the wonderful insights as well. In continuation to the plenty of content shared by Pallav, we will continue our thought process to the area of execution by streamlining workflows with process automation, more of digital process automation. A small recap on what Pallav spoke about, very insightful information, predominantly on the digital processes, insights to individuals and productivity, spoke about employee experience and smooth collaboration. Additionally, Pallav also spoke on integrating broken processes, emphasize on governance, scalability, cloud, cost, right? Reduced errors, and more importantly, on how processes can be scaled from low complexity, low risk to complex ones. Today, if you see, the challenges are more from that area. In my presentation, I will continue the focus on these lines. I will try to attack, I will try to target on these lines, and I will try to present more of digital process automation, as well as maybe we'll take a lucrative process that Pallav spoke about, the invoice processing, maybe during the end of the slide deck. Business flows or processes or standard operating procedures, as we call it as SOPs. They range from simple departmental flows to complex enterprise-wide processes. What makes them complex is the sheer information processing along with rule-based conformance, which is the cognitive part, which again Pallav spoke about. As processes move from simple to complex, the inherent information transforms to complex models, and hence time for processing along with the associated risks, and if they are done manually, more of the human errors also get into the the aspect of delays and maybe missing information. A true digital transformation helps these processes get simplified to the users, particularly through simple user experience, a range of different channels like emails. You talk about mobility, you talk about scalable and business friendly features like a low code framework for easy change management, and more importantly, adherence to the SOPs and hence the governance that has been established as part of the quality assurance. How well is the complexity understood by the solutions depend on the nature of digital tools to address these robust needs. Deep information processing and comprehensive information management like data, content, document, audit, etc. to bring about a consolidated and single user interface for better experience. A single interface solves many of the problems that we encounter today as part of many of our automated solutions. As process automation is not just about technology, but also on how well it enables the business in their strategies. Any automation has a vision, mission, strategy, and then adoption. Okay? So how well this tool is able to address every aspect of these digital transformation strategies is what we have to look into. A unified digital platform helps in creating intelligent processes that bring impactful and responsive environment, which is more towards aligning towards the business models that we envisage. In short, digital process automation or transformation refers to IT modernization with focus on rapid digitization of enterprise-wide processes to bring an agile user experience that is scalable, secure, and follows the compliance as per the policies of the organization and rule of law. The question that comes to our mind is on where will these digital transformations lead us to, or what should be the objective of these transformations? one side is the business expectations, but other side is from the transformation itself. So what are these digital transformation going to lead us to? Digital transformations merge people, processes, and technologies to bring in an agile environment that supports the organization goals. Right, as said earlier also, digitalized processes keep maturing themselves for continuous benefits that are more focused on the business expectations and outcomes, which are changing every now and then based on the market needs. The maturity of the transformation or depth of the process automations lead to varied levels of maturity that are comparable to the industry benchmarks and move us ahead of the curve to make us best in class or visionaries. A visionary-based digital transformation or process automation will ensure resilient operations and makes business objectives finite. Since we spoke about maturity in the previous few slides, the same goes hand in hand with the business objective, because the scalability, the maturity, everything is again focused on the business outcomes, right? So every step of maturity supports the business objectives, right from being effective to driving efficiency to redefining the bottom lines, which is again from a lower operational cost, to working towards better margins and hence the top line, which will make sure the business can dynamically have a strategy which are more focused on the market leadership. Right? The digital landscape again for intelligent process automation brings in uniform, consolidated, assisted or enabled and agile user experience across the channels they operate upon. As we all know, there are multiple channels that we work on. We go to the, if you take a bank, you go to the branch, hotels, mobile. Same way, when people in enterprise want to work upon any of the operational aspects, the digital environment should support them to work from anything. It could be email, it could be the physical documents getting digitized and pushed, it could be faxes. I can work upon from a browser, a portal, maybe mobile apps, or it could be third-party applications, which could be anything of that sort, right? So the way we bring in the user experience is supported by a range of frameworks. And this comes through a framework called orchestration layer. This orchestration layer handles the communication between the stakeholders and the technologies. The orchestration layer allows to bind information across the organizational functional departments and automate enterprise level processes that span across. So it need not be, if you go back to the earlier slides, we spoke about simple to complex processes where it is started from a siloed functional interdepartmental processes to intra-departmental processes, right? So the same way, some examples include the finance and accounting part, like the P2P, the procure to pay, or the records to report, or the order to cash. Talk about supply chain, human resources, right from onboarding to exit formalities to various other appraisals and employee records management. Talking about admin operations and other processes which could be easily automated as part of these digital automation framework. As said, the orchestration layer includes the business process management, the robotic process automation, and a host of supporting technologies, right from data extraction to rules management to RPA to mobility, dashboards, and plenty of other features and functionalities that help users in fulfilling the business needs. And this orchestration layer integrates well with the existing investments, including your legacy applications that could not be scaled up for rich user experience because of the nature in which they were built, or maybe it will be too costlier for them to get transformed into a digital arena. And of course, in between is the content management framework, where everything that we do is either having a document, email, social media, it could be anything, but yes, every operation or every function has a touch onto the content as well. So the whole orchestration layer also is supported by a content management framework, so that a 360-degree aspect of the processes are taken care of. Having said too much about digital process automation, and I spoke about initially also, let me talk about this lucrative process, which has the most impactful automation for any organization, right, in the finance area, the invoice processing. We all know the happy flow and the unhappy flow of invoice processing, right, from receiving to digitalizing. We don't do digitalizing in many places now, but yes, we register, we get into the process, we approve in case of non-material invoices, posts, keep updating, and there are so many calls that happen. And as Pallav rightly said, we compile the reports on an end of day basis or end of week basis, manipulate the data, and then come out with the dashboards which are required by the management. Right? We all know about these things, and many of the ad hoc activities go for discrepancy handling, predominantly on emails and what you call the ad hoc discussions, right? So how does it change in case of the digital transformation? The automation uh, becomes simplified and agile and less of human involvement that result in larger benefits of auditability, reduced errors, and more visibility. The automation also drives many intelligent aspects that enhances the way invoices are processed, resulting in almost zero risks. On-time processing through straight-through processing or first-time right scenarios, and gives larger visibility to all stakeholders, whether internal or external. In short, a digitally transformed invoice process creates an agile vendor relationship that result in better business management. Right? So, what happens is that the digital tools auto analyze the invoice data, look for discrepancies, auto validate with the core ERP, does lot of validations, auto classifies them as clean or need interventions, and send out email to stakeholders in case of clean invoice, complete the posting of them to the ERPs, all without human interventions, right? And these interventions come only when there are exceptions where user needs to get involved and see what is the level of rework or re-engagement with the vendor or other stakeholders to be done, so that they also can go into the automated posting model. Right? The better the invoice quality, data quality, the less human touch and more straight-through processing. That's what the whole system drives. More of a straight-through processing result in direct cost savings per transaction and also increased productivity. So also what happens in this scenario is that the entire reporting gets transformed into a real-time dashboards, and every stakeholder can look at what is going on at any point of time into the system and get to know the exact status and take remedial actions as and when required. It could even be extended to the external stakeholders like vendors, where the number of calls they make on the status of their invoice can be reduced. Having said this, now while saying that, okay, we will digitally transform invoice processing is so easier, let us look at what gets into such kind of processing. What tools, what AI, what ML, what kind of BPM, RPA technologies and tools are required or maybe mandated to ensure that we have an agile process automated. Right? So let's look at some of them, the digital frameworks, as we call, for agile process automation. Our engagement with vendors are not specific to invoices, right? So what we need to do is that we have to look into a lot of aspects. When we say we are trying to simplify the processes as part of the digital frameworks, not only the process gets simplified, but it also gets mature. Right? So whatever are the mimics, as Pallav was talking about, all those exceptions are automatically identified using an AI model. All the known validations are done as part of the ERP integration. All the exceptions or discrepancies are auto-notified, and wherever they are conforming to the standards SOPs, they become touchless. They are transformed into more of higher straight-through processing, pushed into a resolution for faster aspects, and also the audit part is taken care where every exception or every discrepancy is auto-logged and a report comes in on the most found exceptions as part of the processing so that they can be gamified for rectification. We'll talk about that in subsequent slides. Right? Also, when we speak about our engagements with vendors are not specific to invoices, which I was commenting, they could be supporting documents, they could be debit notes, credit notes, or maybe types of invoices. So what we need is intelligence, and intelligence to auto understand the content, auto segregate, and push to the workflow, right? For the users to process. Maybe we have a skill-based workforce for invoices, for capex invoices separately, or for debit notes separately. So these intelligence will take care of that part, right? So that the time spent on segregation is the least. Coming to the most other important aspect is the auto extraction of the data from the digitized documents, which help in reducing the unskilled activities by our skilled employees, right? And also the associated error bins. Extractions are challenging and the accuracy depends on a lot of factors, including the way engines process the documents and cognitive rules to get the right data on a templateless manner. We don't need to define by vendor. Using multiple engines, the extraction happens, aggregating the confidence level at field level, doing an auto voting between the engines and picking up the highest confidence level value against a field helps in the most sophisticated way of getting right information and hence accurate data and hence less of user intervention and reworks. Right? So we are talking about more intuitive user interfaces where the color coding happens on the user interface to show what is the level of confidence of extraction for each field so that the user can focus only on those fields which are having lesser accuracies. And also when you click on a particular field, pointing out to the area where it got extracted from helps in further reducing the time spent on corrections. Notwithstanding that, again, getting into the fraud part, which is again important, where the duplicacy of invoices are involved. One such is about the duplicacy, as I said, how well we are able to detect duplicate invoices. A straightforward and more fuzzy way is what we need to look into. The process also allows for definition of the duplicate logic as a part of the SOP. But what is more important is identifying exact duplicates as well as suspect duplicates, which are on the rules but on partially the rules become partially true. Right? So it is not just about the exact duplicates but also on the partial duplicates, which help us understand the duplicates better and ensure that the risks are taken care of. Another aspect is about how we reduce the reworks and risks associated, right? One important aspect is about the past performance of the vendor. Again, going into the past vendor invoices, we can say that, okay, out of the past 10 invoices, how many of them were straight through? How many of them required a lot of reworks? How many of them were fraudulent? How many of them were straight through so that we can pass upon these invoices, right? The second aspect is how many times we have reworked on the coding, wrong coding that was done as part of the non-material invoices. Right? We do reconciliation at the end of the month. We try to rectify the coding that has happened. So if the suggestions come from the digital tool in based on the trends of the past, on the vendor, on the services, on the cost center, or maybe another set of combinations. If an assistive coding is there, where it tells what are all the previously used codes and how frequently they have been used, then the time to rework and the first time right kind of scenarios in invoice processing can be easily achieved. And not only that, we spoke about dashboards. We are talking about the role-based insights, right from operational dashboards to information that can be given even before these transactions hit the ERP is what we are talking about. We are talking about plenty of reports which are operational, functional, management, and we also talk about managing our benchmarks. or managing our trend with the industry benchmarks so that we know how we are faring against those industry benchmarks. Notwithstanding what I said earlier about the gamification, the process automation also helps in gamifying the participating environment, right? Both internal and external stakeholders. Gamification helps in external stakeholders being more receptive to the best practices adopted as part of these digital automation. Something like vendor. So we can set rules on vendors, not the performance of the vendor from a material perspective, but more from a transaction sourcing perspective, where the vendors can be rated and some goodies can be given based on their good uh, uh, submission of the transactions. Right. Same way for vendors, we can identify high performers and give comparative analysis to all others so that it makes a competitive work environment. It also motivates other employees to perform better and be on the top league of performers so that everybody participates to the best practices of digital automation as well, so that we achieve our results as part of this automation. And all these and much more are part of the Newgen digital automation platform, where the concentration is on user experience through intelligent automation, analytics, low code, coupled with content management and RPA. Right. So the way the way the whole platform concentrates is on a unified platform, which can become an orchestration layer and help applications scale beyond their traditional features to support large enterprise needs from a digital perspective. The digital Newgen business process automation platform encompasses every aspect of the process, right from sourcing to archiving. So you talk about the front end aspects like the social media integrations, the web portals, the mobile or in-person kind of aspects, or you talk about the messaging, the scanning, right from any kind of source, all tools and technologies required to give an end-to-end automation is available as part of the Newgen's digital process automation solution. And that's where we catch upon. We have plenty of integration adapters, including certified adapters for SAP and others. We comply to a lot of what you call the industry benchmarks and industry compliances present on cloud as well as on on-prem. The key strength of Newgen is it's almost 29 plus years of platform maturity. I'm sorry. We have more than 550 clients, active clients across 21 verticals. Newgen solutions are time and again proven by analyst firms like Gartner and Forrester alike. The richness of the technology is demonstrated with 44 plus patents that drive these platforms to deliver the business results of our clients. With that, I come to an end of my presentation. Hope it was informative and there are key takeaways. For more information on business verticals, the platform suite and solutions, please do visit NewgenSoft.com. Thank you, and back to you, Ruchi.
Thank you, Sriram. We have a couple of questions and I shall start taking that up one by one. Okay, the first question is for Pallav and it says, the digitization of workplace is one of the biggest change that we are observing. How workflow automation is the answer to the cost optimization part, because there is a huge cost that goes into deploying this technology. So what are your views on it, Pallav?
See, I think this is something that we are also advising our clients as well, how to go about doing their digital journeys. See, I think it is important for people to realize that the day and age where large investments had to be made in certain platforms are probably past, right? It'll probably happen, once your large, enterprise level technologies are being deployed, such as your ERPs of the world. What is good, or what is a probably a prudent way to go about the automation agenda is to identify what are the low hanging applications that can be targeted, where the results can quickly be seen, right? I had highlighted AP, for example. Like that, there are several areas which can really benefit from automation, right? When we look at automation, right, one is obviously the cost angle, but I think it is also important to look at it from a business continuity perspective, and which to us, in terms of what we have seen in the market, is something which has been driving some of this change, which is what I tried to highlight in my presentation as well. So cost definitely is a consideration, and typically when you look at cost, you should look at not enterprise-wide application of workflow automation, but perhaps look at some areas where it can impact you the most. It can give you the best bang for your buck, right? So have a selection of certain processes which you feel are prone or amenable to automation. Go about quickly identifying how these can be automated, and once you have done the automation, quickly realize those benefits, showcase them to the internal stakeholders, and then again make a business case as to how you would want to broad base some of this automation to the other areas which may be more complex. But I mean, a kind of a gradual approach is what we've seen work well with the clients who we have worked with, instead of a carpet bombing kind of an approach where I look to digitize everything, and which ultimately involve not only a cost in terms of the platform as such, but also from a development standpoint, it is something that is going to take a more amount of time, right? So start small, deliver that experience, realize the benefits, and then move on to the next application.
Okay. Thank you. I'll just take up the next question as well, because it sounds like pretty much in the same. The next question is, things are going back to normal in many countries across the world. Do you still feel the investment we do right now on process automation will be beneficial?
Yeah, I think
This is for
yes,
Palak.
the world is opening up, and which is why I think it was important to look at those numbers in perspective as well. What we've seen during the pandemic is a lot of companies did try to cost optimize on their physical infrastructure, and realize that some of the changes that are happening during the pandemic are probably more are going to be sustained in the future, at least in the next few years to come, right? Now when we look at these trends, it is again important to really observe, see, because I mean it is volatile times, right? I mean what is going to happen tomorrow, whether a third wave or a fourth wave is going to come, and that is going to impact work in another significant way, whether vaccination is going to have a more sustained opened workplace, we don't know as of now. There are too many question marks out there as of now. What we've seen, and which is where these data points are coming from, people are looking to work in a setup which is more flexible. In a lot of places in APEC, for example, people are saying we don't want to work 5 days a week from the office. Perhaps it will be good if we can get not 5 days work from home, but at least a 1 to 2 days work from home. Is the infrastructure going to be different for a setup that is going to be, let's say, 2 days work from home vis-a-vis 5 days work from home? Probably not, because you'll have to create the infrastructure where you are able to give all of those flexibilities for people to work, right? So I think pandemic has accelerated some of these things, but essentially when people look at automation, people will have to really look at what are the sustained benefits of creating some of this infrastructure, because at the end of the day it is leading to to a certain extent whatever processes are being automated. I mean, there's some amount of bandwidth which is being released. People are millennials, for example, are more attuned to more digital ways of working, hence it will be good to expose your millennial employees to a more digital kind of a way of working, to be able to attract the right talent and to retain that talent in the longer. And so, I mean, there are multiple dimensions which one will have to really see, and not only pandemic. The essence of the presentation was pandemic has kind of accelerated this change, but the change is something which is probably here to stay, right? And this change was happening even before pandemic. I think a lot of companies were using some of these technologies to drive efficiencies. So yeah, I mean, don't look at it only from a pandemic perspective, saying that if this opens up, probably business continuity may not be a concern, but yeah, I mean, it is giving you all those other benefits as well, which one should also look at while making any such investment.
Okay, thank you. Shriram, the next couple of questions are pretty much directed to Newgen, so I think you will be the better person to answer. So the first question is, how is Newgen's platform, digital automation platform, different from its competitor? Pretty much direct, and maybe you'd like to highlight the USPs.
Difficult question to answer because yeah, I got your word. Most important part is I will give you maybe a couple of answers to that, which could be related. Obviously, comparison, apple to apple comparisons will always be there. Maybe if there is a competitor who says I have the 101th feature, since Newgen owns the product, the IP, the delivery models, it does not take time to create that extra feature as part of the product. But what is more important is the depth of these digital transformation tools in addressing the industry needs or the business needs. The most important is how to address I should say, the first and foremost is end-to-end automation. Right from the time we try to source to the time we complete the transaction and keep it archived for audit requirements. How well this end-to-end transaction management as part of the business flows are kept or handled is an important functional, is an important differentiator, right? Not only that, even if it is on the sourcing front, how well it can be managed. What are the factors that will help in better management of source acquisition so that my processing inside the organization takes the least amount of time and hence the least cost and hence the best of the productivity. And having a finite business function, which means I know that if an invoice comes to my organization, in whatever mode it comes, I will be able to process it on the same day, match it, post it, and keep it ready for payment. If I can assure through my digital automation framework that whatever may be the mode of source, I will complete the transaction in less than a day's time, right? That is the maturity of those digital frameworks. And where Newgen comes from is a combination of tools and technologies that are required to make an agile digital process automation. And these product suites are tried and tested over a period of 25 to 28 years. Seen depth and breadth of the implementations, matured itself in all these years. So it supports the legacy way of working. It supports the modern and most millennial way of working, as Pallav said. So whatever may be the content, whatever may be the applications, whatever may be the source, whatever may be the stakeholders, whoever may be the stakeholders, whatever may be the way they want to work upon, the tool today is capable of satisfying every aspect of a digital transformation. This is point number one. Point number two is that all the tools and technologies are organically developed inside Newgen. Newgen holds the trademark, IP, and all the sources of these product suites that we are positioning, which helps in long term. Whenever we come with new versions, all the suite of tools and technologies which are part of this digital suite upgrade organically. You don't need to talk to multiple vendors to see whether an upgrade of a particular tool will have an impact on the other. Right? So this upgrades and what you call migrations become very, very easy, less painful, less costlier, and more agile. Maybe perhaps over the weekends, right? So that is the second advantage Newgen brings in. We have never been acquired nor acquired any product, right? So that's the organic growth. The third important thing is that many of the global SIs have their own center of excellence teams to do the domain-based delivery. Additionally, Newgen also has their own delivery team so that you get a single point of ownership from the product OEM perspective, as well as from a delivery perspective, as well as from a long-term support and incremental enhancements perspectives, right? So as Pallav said, start small, keep growing. Now what you need is a true partner, right? From the product, from the delivery, and from a domain perspective, who will keep helping in the longer run towards enterprise-wide implementations, enterprise-wide automation, right? So Newgen is a right partner in that space. Perhaps these three I can give. Technically, as I said earlier, apple to apple comparisons do not work. Any company can develop a piece of functionality, whatever they see in other tools and technologies, right? So these are the three main criteria why Newgen stands out. And we have customer stickiness for more than 15, 20 years, even today with us. Hope that satisfies the question that was raised, Ruchika. Back to you.
Sure. Since we are exceeding time, I'll not be able to take all the questions. We have a couple of them, so I'll just pick one or two more. The next question is, what do you think is the best possible option for an automated purchase bill matching? Is it OCR, is it email management, or is it RPA through a portal of predefined fields? Which one would you suggest is the best option?
Okay, this is to me, right, Sriram?
Yeah, yes.
See, technologies are one part of it. If you look at where the world is going, everybody is moving towards e-invoicing. Even in India, we have e-invoicing, we have PayPal frameworks in Singapore and other countries. Saudi Arabia is also coming out with an e-invoicing framework. So these extraction technologies are definitely going to be there, whether it is driven through a BPM layer or through intelligent extraction or through RPA, it is going to be there. But the way these data gets handled as part of a framework is what is going to drive the processing part, right? So maybe over a period of time, these OCRing aspects will go away. As you all know, a lot of portal frameworks are there where they allow for PO flips, so that you don't need to do really OCR, but you have to just match it online on a portal and complete your process. E-invoicing is also helping in QR code or something like that, no? Where you can extract the data from predefined files, where you don't need to do OCRing. So the way OCRing is today may not be there in the couple of years, maybe die down over a period of time. How invoices get processed is going to be getting changed over a period of time, including the purchasing and other things. What is more important is having a sound business flow, and you see how this business flow, which is mapped to every manual activity as well as every application activity or joint activities, how these gets transformed as part of a digital layer. When it required for support for OCR, it should do OCR. When it is required to get information from e-invoicing aspects like that, it should support that. So this digital layer should support any model, whether it is legacy or the most modern. That is what I will say. I will say the sound business flows coupled with a strong digital product which can support any of these models should be the right way to go. Back to you, Vijay.
Sure. I'll just take one last question, as it is a very contrasting kind of a question. It says there is overuse of automation everywhere. Do you think, what would you suggest will be the optimal level of automation in any process? Because we see a lot of over automation which leads to rigidity. So what are your views on that?
Again to me?
Yes, again to you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I think Pallav answered this question. It is not that we have to go upon at an enterprise level in the start itself. What is more important is process discovery. we need to understand the organizational processes, business processes, not the technology processes. We need to understand the organizational business processes, define them, categorize them into critical for the business, right, and non-critical. Then get into cost benefit analysis. Now, if this process gets transformed into the digital way, what is going to be my benefit in terms of tangible benefits, again from a people, cost and compliance perspective, and from a non-tangible perspective, which could be all these straight through processing, reduced errors, compliance, reduced non-compliances, or reduced risks. So the way the bucketing should happen should be based on business criticality and the most beneficial processes. They should be started first, proven, so that the benefits of these automation are realized, which will embark or which will help in understanding how different the other processes could be done so that maximization of benefits can be achieved. Again, please don't look only from a cost perspective. It could be lot of intangibles also could be part of the benefits, right? To understand it better, we should do a cost benefit analysis process by process where the business flows are well defined. So the key is well defined business flows, analysis of how this will get transformed into digital solution, what will be my tangible benefit, what will be my intangible benefit, and then look at which to start with, how to go about in processes. As rightly asked, there are some processes which does not make sense to automate with X expense, which does not give the real benefit of automation. For example, certain silos of actions we do on a yearly basis for an hour does not really require automation unless there is a compliance requirement for that, right? So the discovery phase is very important. Discovery of business processes, mapping that to digital automation, comparing the cost benefit analysis, both from a tangible and intangible way, and then categorize them based on the criticality, and then taking up one by one or on a batch will be the right approach to ensure that we don't have dozens of, or we don't overkill ourselves through digital automation. Back to you, Richard.
I'll probably just add to that. I think automation for automation's sake obviously doesn't help anyone, right? And to what Mr. Sriram, I think very eloquently described, right? I mean, there has to be an approach to automation, wherein each of the opportunities are qualified, and there has to be a reason, a business case why you are doing this, right? And I think if somebody really asks, if there's auto or over automation, I think the question to be asked is whether you have a certain roadmap in place, basis which the automation agenda overall is addressed. And I will perhaps I mean, my educated guess will be if really somebody's talking about over automation, probably that initial assessment hasn't been done, right? And that initial roadmap has not been laid, right? Which Mr. Sriram described. So one has to probably step back and then take a fair review of where one is and how automation can really help. I mean, it is an enabler at the end of the day, not something which is something mandated, right? It is something which is going to help you and should not be a challenge as such, right? I mean, whether it is cost or whether it is the way you work, it should be something which should be helping you. Yeah.
Sure. So I think that's the great note to end, that over automation always kills. So thanks everyone. Thanks Pallav. Thanks Sriram for all the valuable insights that you have shared. Thanks to the entire audience for your valuable time, for your patience. We apologize that we are not able to take all the questions at the go. Please look out for our emails. We will be reverting back to you for all your questions. We shall be sending across the presentation and the transcript for all the questions. Goodbye. Have a great day. And reach out to us for all your queries. Do follow us on our social media. That is @Newgen Software. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.